A warm welcome back then to the Andy Holding Speed Figures YouTube channel. Myself, Sam Turner, joined by Andy Holding this evening. We're going to have a good look ante-post at Royal Ascot, which is obviously upcoming next week. This will be a quick skirt through some of the main events going through the week, the older horse races, and then perhaps at the end of the recording, we'll just touch on one or two two-year-olds. We find you in good form, Andy?
Hi, Sam. Yeah, I'm looking forward to next week, as always. I would say, bar Cheltenham, this is probably one of the pivotal betting weeks for myself anyway of the whole entire season. Looks like we're going to get decent ground as well, looking at the advanced forecast. Doesn't appear to be too much appreciable rain, which is great. You don't want any sort of lingering clouds and showers forecast for that week and hovering around. So it looks like we're going to get good ground or good to firm ground, which is perfect for the best flat racing in the world.
Yeah, let's hope the weather forecasts are a bit more accurate than they were at Epsom over the weekend. And of course, last year as well, we had plenty of showers about, which altered quite a few things. But as you say, let's hope we maintain the status quo with the weather and the ground, and we get a good racing surface for all. Let's get into day one then, and we'll start off with the Queen Anne, the traditional curtain raiser over the straight mile at Ascot. And we've got a short price favourite here, understandably, because he's the preeminent miler in Europe, and that's Palace Pier, rated 125. And he's putting odds on already for this race, even with however many left, 22 left at the recent declaration stage. So it's going to be difficult to get him beat, although he has been beaten once at Ascot, obviously, in the Champions Day on bad ground where he lost to Shoe. But around 4 to 7, Andy, he's a tough one to get beaten, isn't he?
He is. I don't think we're going to dwell too long on this race, particularly over a week in advance. Yeah, I mean, he's just a brilliant horse, isn't he? I mean, he won here last year off the back of only a minor victory at Newcastle the time before. It was a very bold move, seemingly at the time, for John Gosden to throw him into the Lion's Den. But he managed to win a Group 1 first time off the bat, and he's done pretty much nothing wrong since. Hugely impressive, wasn't he, last time out in the sort of preeminent trial for this race, arguably the race at Newbury, in which he dismissed a good field. As we know, it was a good time figure, wasn't it, Sam? He pretty much handles most grounds, and other than that, just one blip here on bad ground, he's pretty much bomb-proof. There normally is a few sort of what you would like to think guaranteed sneaky ones, like your Lord Glitters, your Accidental Agents, you tend to look at from an each-way perspective. I think Lord Busker probably fits into that category this year.
Sir Busker, yeah.
Sir Busker, yeah. He was a good winner here last year, of course, I think it was a consolation Hunt Cup, wasn't it?
It was the Silver Hunt Cup, yeah.
Silver Hunt Cup. So we know he handles the track. He likes fast ground. The race in France last time out didn't really suit him, but he was a bit unlucky here the first time behind This Is Us, when he probably hit the front a bit too soon. But he's the kind of horse you want to be looking at maybe at 33 to 1 or without the favourite on the day as a horse that'll be probably ridden to finish in the frame.
Absolutely, you read my mind. Yeah, I mean, he's 4-1, 4-3 on the straight course at Ascot. If there is a good field, they might bet 4 places all without the favourite. He was half a length behind Palace Pier as well in the QE2, wasn't he? I know Palace Pier, for whatever reason, perhaps didn't run up to his best that day behind the Revenant, but Sir Busker still ran an absolute lifetime best there. I thought both him and the other one I quite like, just to try and get some sneaky place money, would be Bless Him, who's 2 from 3 on the straight track here. Goes particularly well for Jamie Spencer. I mean, his record for Spencer is 3-1-7, 1-1-4, 1-3-2. And the only time he's been beaten on the straight track at Ascot in 3 starts was when Sheen Murphy rode him in the Hunt Cup. Yeah. So, if Frank rides him next week, then I think, at 66 to 1, he'd be one I'd definitely be looking at 4 places or without the favourite. So, bit of interest there anyway against Palace Pier.
Really good shout, Sam. Particularly if there's half a decent field and we get 4 or 5 places.
Yeah, perfect.
Yeah, we are looking at those each-way horses as a good alternative to the Fav.
And like you say, it's happened here before. We had a Lord Glitters and an Accidental Hero and some complete boilovers in this race before now. So, yeah, very interesting to see actually how this plays out. And look, if we see a good horse win, great. If we don't, let's try and pick up some pieces from something at a big price otherwise. Right, on to the King's Stand then, a vastly different test, the Flying 5. And Potash finally nailed his Ascot victory last year. And I wonder whether it was a coincidence that there were no crowds. Would that have been the reason why he managed to win it? Was it the fourth time of asking, I think, at Ascot, having finished second a couple of times in this race?
Yeah, that's got to be some kind of factor, isn't it? I mean, it's not a normal 50, 60,000 and all the, the pomp and ceremony, but it's it's still going to be a healthy crowd, isn't it? Enough to get Batash propped on his toes anyway. I mean, it wasn't a poor run the year before, was it? When he finished second, it's not as if he's run badly in the race before. He got beat by the Godolphin horse, who was very, very good on the day. Look, we know, and we have known for a little while now. Batash Shadi's very best. He's the best 5 furlong sprinter in the world, isn't he? Pretty much. The Americans might have something to say about that, but we've seen enough for Batash to know how good he is. I don't see in this year's race what I would call an obvious each-way alternative at this very moment in time, because I think a lot of them have got beaten by Batash in the past. Your Liberty Beaches, your Keep Busies, the ones that are probably not quite Group 1 level. They're probably more Group 3. I think Extravagant Kid, if he comes here, I think he'll get outpaced. The winner of the Alquoz, I think he's more suitable to 6 furlongs. Oxted is likely to go down that route as well. So it's a difficult one at this very moment in time. I'll probably have a look at it on the day and just take a view. It's a race I haven't got in my betting structure yet. Well, I've penciled off a few races. I'm thinking I'm definitely playing in that, looking for some each way doubles and multiples. But this one, at this very moment in time, I haven't really got my head around it from that perspective.
I thought the two potential big price plays for me were, like you say, at the top end of the market, you've got all the horses that Batash has sort of beaten before. Glass Slippers, who's never won, I don't think, before August. No. From 7 up to August, 3 from 6 or something, August to September. Winter Power looks pretty progressive, but almost a little bit of a soft ground filly. For me, I think she'd want some dig in the ground. Oxted over this trip, I'm not convinced about. Liberty Beach ran well in the race last year, was beaten a couple of lengths, but quite a free-going type that didn't quite see it out as a 3-year-old. Might be a different case this year. I thought she was certainly a candidate. But I'm just looking at the sort of the old thieves a little bit further down. I mean, that's to damn King's Lynn, but I do think he's one horse that's got a lot of potential over 5 furlongs.
Yeah.
Truly run 5. But Arecibo would probably, from the connections that managed to land this race some years ago. Was it Prohibit? Was that the horse that they managed to win with?
Yeah, I think me and you were there that day, and I think we might have had a few quid on ourselves. I think, Sam, if I remember right.
Might well have done, and I might well do again, because he looks a revitalised customer now that he's gone to Robert Cowell, and with Robert obviously having a little bit of previous in this race with Prohibit in these colours, the Tom Morley colours. Wouldn't surprise me if Arecibo ran a blind. I was really impressed with him last time. I know it was soft ground at Newmarket, and the race might have fallen apart a little bit, but that was a career best for me. The way that he sort of sauntered through that race, they just seemed to have got his head right. And he's almost turned into a winning machine after years of me backing him and not producing anything. He's won 2 of his last 3, and he was a bit unlucky behind Lazuli at Newmarket as well. So there might just be a couple of just to keep on side in a race that, yeah, like I say, the second favourite is Glass Slippers, who's a terrifically honest and speedy filly in her own right, not to mention, Group 1 performer, but, first time off the shelf, early season, is that the time to catch her? We'll have to wait and see, I suppose. Right, let's get on to the third race, to St James's Palace. This is the mile on the round track for 3-year-olds. I thought this was a really, really tricky race, Andy. How would you play this at this stage?
Yeah, it's a bit of a conundrum, isn't it? When I looked at this last week with a view, obviously, to doing this recording, I was rather banking or thinking that Poetic Flair possibly might not come here again, but he's Jim Bulger, and Jim's got a game plan all of his own. I think he'd run him every week, wouldn't he, if there was a race for him. But he seems to be taking his racing really well. I was amazed with his running the Irish Guineas behind his Stabber companion, considering only the week before he'd run down the field in France. I'll be very interested if John Gosden rolls the dice with Moshadaf, who won at Sandown. He won the Heron Stakes, which is a race that Without Parole won 3 years ago for John Gosden. Before coming here, he obviously won the race last year with Palace Pier. He's only got a rating of 101, but I think he could be a little bit better than that. And Highland Avenue had chased him home. Probably didn't get the run of the race that day, but he clocked a big time figure, as we know, when he won the Fielden Stakes earlier in the season. He probably wants a little further than a mile, Highland Avenue, in an ideal world. But again, they're not likely to hang around in this race. There should be a good pace of that, bringing stamina into play. So I'd certainly have a decent look at those at this stage. That's where I'm sort of tending to edge that Sandown Haram Stakes form line. I think that wasn't a bad race.
All right. Well, I'll throw Chindit into the equation. Obviously, probably drawn on the wrong side in the Guineas. Beat Memento, good winner at Epsom over the weekend at Newbury the time before. He's already won at Ascot, albeit on the straight track, of course, winning that week with stakes in the middle of last summer. So at least we know that he goes on the terrain. I think you're going to want a horse here. I always think on the round track, I mean, the draw is going to be important, obviously, so it's difficult to make any hard and fast calculations now. But, a horse that can quicken, really. I think Chindit can probably do that. And I think one or two in this field are probably more gallopers. Whether they'll be able to, find a turn of foot over the round mile might be open to question, really. So he'd be my first thought. Lucky Vega, obviously, you can throw into the equation as well, but he's had a couple of really hard races. So whether he'd come over for this, I don't know. The thing I like with Chindit is he's had that 45-day break from the Guineas. So it looks a real plan here. They've managed to resist going anywhere else with him. So that would probably be my thinking at this stage. Should we get on to day two?
Yeah, well, that's a good idea, Sam. Yeah, day two.
So we'll swerve the Duke of Cambridge. Lady Bowthorpe looks a pretty fair 5-2 chance for that race as we stand. Go perhaps into the Prince of Wales' stakes. Really intriguing race here. And running plans, I think, are going to have a massive bearing, aren't they, with Aidan O'Brien having Love and Armory in this race?
Yeah, I've had a few quid each way on Armory. I'm rather hoping he's going to come here and Love goes elsewhere. I think there's rumours that Love might stay on home soil and running. I think there's a fillies only race, Group 1, isn't it, coming up in a few weeks' time at the Curragh, which might be a little bit more suitable, particularly on a filly having their first run of the season. We know Armory's obviously rock hard fit with his win in the Huxley Stakes. You could argue that Sangarius rather let the form down, but I didn't think he was given the greatest ride at Sandown on ground. It probably was a bit too soft for him. So I'd just rather crunch down into the numbers that Armory did that day. It wasn't an off the scale overall, but his back end work, sort of circuit time, in particular the last 3 or 4 furlongs, were very, very good, in keeping with the sort of 5-6 furlong sprinters on the same card. He's obviously in the form of his life, Armory. He too is a little bit of a doubt about whether conditions are going to be ideal for him. I think he probably wanted a little bit of digging the ground, if we're being honest.
Not according to Aidan O'Brien, or more particularly Ryan Moore after the race, who felt that he won in spite of the soft ground, actually. He feels he wants a decent surface so that he can just showcase that turn of foot he's got. So
that's
I think
good
it's
news.
pretty versatile ground-wise, really.
Yeah, that's good news. I just went through the bones of his best form, and it always seems to take place just with a little bit of juice in the ground. He's a win on heavy as well, isn't he, as a 2-year-old? So, yeah, that gives me a bit of encouragement. But anyway, I'll put my colours on the mass for him. Obviously, Lord North, massive danger. The market leader, the worthy market leader, course and distance winner. You can't take that away from him. He's a beast of a horse, isn't he? He almost looks like a bull, doesn't he? He's so imposing. He's going to be very difficult to beat. But I thought Armory at the prices was a good, solid each way alternative. I'm just hoping that my thinking is right and he'll come here and represent Ballydor rather than Love.
I'd be surprised if he didn't. It looks a perfect setup race for him, really, doesn't it? Mile and a quarter, decent ground.
Yeah.
Lord North bled after that Dubai turf as well. Whether that's going to be something that keeps resurfacing or not, I'm sure John Gosden's on top of it, but it's hardly ideal, is it?
No, it's not. You're right. No, it's not.
Right, so that's the Prince of Wales' stakes then. You're very happy with what you found there. Royal Hunt Cup at this stage, are you going to put anything up?
Again, track form's huge in this race. It's tended to go towards a 4- and 5-year-old in recent times. So I'm looking for the younger horses that are coming through the ranks. The form of the Grove Ferry victory at Chester's worked out really well. As we know, we've seen several horses in behind that out of that race pretty much, I think that the second, third, fourth, fifth have all won, haven't they? Subsequently,
Yeah.
The time figure was very healthy. Grove Ferry's got good straight track form at Ascot. Is he arguably a mile on a stiff track like Ascot quite his cup of tea? I think he was well suited to the turn in 7.5 at Chester. I watched him over a mile here before. He just looks as though it just about come to the end of his tether over a well-run mile. So he wouldn't be for maximum stakes, but I think he's a 20-25 to 1 shot. He's worth half an interest. And I thought Hikiki was given an horrific ride in that Group 3 back in April. I mean, it was out on the wing, saw way too much daylight, quickened up, looked as though he was going to win, but that effort to get there, having got a carbon copy Stork and Pounds ride at Doncaster to lead inside the last 100 yards, that's how you've got to ride Ascot. And to hit the front two furlongs out here, they were asking for trouble, drifted over to the right, and the ones that were down the near side, This Is Us, Prince EG, were benefited by where they were on the track. The form's worked out really well. The winner's won again since. Solid Stone, I think, has won at Windsor. It's really good form, and John Gosling resisted the temptation to run him in any of the race. It looks like he's going to run him in here. I think Gosling's had this winner. He's had the winner this twice in about the last decade. So it's a race that's, kind of like on his radar. I think GM Hopkins won it 3 or 4 years ago.
He did.
As a 4-year-old, and they've all been well backed in the market. These other previous winners was about an 8 to 1 shot, and the GM Hopkins was 8 to 1. So those are my two I'm looking at: Kiki and Grove Ferry.
Okay, I'll just I'll throw Njord into the equation if the ground is on the easy side.
Yeah, he's a massive ground dependent horse. I agree with you. It was a really good run at Beyond Kinross. He didn't get the clearest runs that day, and he'll definitely win a good pot towards the back end of the season, but he needs it soft. I don't think he'll come over unless it rains.
No, exactly. Not a horse you'd be looking to bet anti-post, but a horse that you might bear in mind if the showers do come.
Yeah.
Right, on to day 3 then, Ribblesdale.
Yeah, Ribblesdale, noon star if it runs. I think the plan is still very much to come here. I think it's on track. Spoke to Ken Peterson the other day just to kind of clarify what the running plans were, and obviously he's fairly closely associated with Mikey Holding and movements in and around that stable. And they said it was just a slight setback that meant that she missed the Oaks, which is a bit of a shame because, as it turned out, her form tied in with Snowfall was good.
I know, and the soft ground as well. It was a bit of
the soft ground as well. Everything was ideal, but
for those of us who better anti-post, put it
absolutely, that way. Yeah, me included, Sam, which is a bit of a shame. But yeah, I think she's the form horse of the race. Her Weatherby win in a fast time has worked out incredibly well. We even saw the third horse, Franklet, win today to boost that form. And Snowfall, Frank the form, obviously in spectacular fashion in the Oaks. So if she runs, then I think she'll be a warm order. I can't see too many of the refugees from the Oaks running because it was a brutal race on soft ground. So I'm not sure what price she is now, but it was 5 to 1 yesterday. I haven't rechecked that, so I don't want to get this.
4 to 1 best, I think.
4 to 1 best now. Yeah, I still think that if she runs, she'll go off in and around the 5 to 2 shorter mark. I think if you can back her now and back her each way, you're very much on the right side of that bet.
Yeah, okie doke. The other sort of feature race or the marquee race is the marquee race of the week, really, and that's the Gold Cup. The next race, the 420 Stradivarius, put in 6 to 5. You've got Subjectivist, obviously the Meydan winner, who ran away with the Dubai Gold Cup. Second favourite, Trushan, one of my favourite horses in training, certainly flat horses in training. Third in, plenty of course form at Ascot. Where would you go at this stage?
Again, similar to the King's Stand, it's not a race I'm rubber stamping as a betting medium just at this very moment in time. I'm thoroughly expecting the status quo to be prevalent again with Stradivarius. He still looks in amazing order, and Gosling just knows what he's doing with this fellow, and he looks as though he's got his timing exactly right. Winning the Cigaro, I think he's won this race the last 3 years off memory, hasn't he? So he knows his track like the back of his hand, and Frank will be up for this one in big time with the crowds back in.
Yes.
And a lot of the others have just got no kind of like solid track form that you sort of write home about. Subjectivist, the way he likes to be ridden, I'm not necessarily sure it'll suit Ascot. He's very much like a Johnson.
Bowl along in front.
Yeah, he's a pace burner that I don't like being on front runners on the round track, particularly in these kind of long distance races. They're just lambs to the slaughter in the home straight. But Mark Johnson likes them ridden like that, so it's not as if he's going to say all of a sudden, drop this out last and bring it through with a run. He'll just say, look, bowl along. So if you're backing Johnson horses on the round track, you've just got to trust the luck more than anything else. So I'm a bit lukewarm on the race at the moment. I must admit, Sam. Trushan, I could see him running well, obviously a course winner, but he probably just want a little bit of ease in the ground to be at his absolute best. Obviously, he won on heavy towards the back end of last year. He's run at Chester, was on soft ground. He's not a mud lover, but I think to be at his absolute best, to beat Stradivarius, he's going to need a bit of rain. Yeah,
quite conceivably. Although I can't see Chris Stickles letting it get really quick, if I'm honest. It's just not the way that he operates, is it? Right, on to day 3 then. 18th of June, King Edward the 7th, Commonwealth Cup, Coronation Stakes. Any of those races that you'd like to talk about?
Yeah, just briefly, Sam. Yeah, I mean, Alenquer now comes into the equation, doesn't it? I think there was rumours that Haggis was going to run this abroad, but I think that might have been shelved, and that they might have a U-turn and come back here, knowing that they've beaten the Derby winner.
Yeah.
Probably the preeminent form line all of a sudden, isn't it? So they probably need to rethink their running orders. Obviously, Bay Bridge, as regular viewers and clients to us will know that the time figure for the London Gold Cup was very much up to what we would consider group class. The form has been King Frankel probably would have won very easily had he got just engaged his brain in any part of that race at Epsom other than the last 100 yards. I think he would have flown the flag quite handily. And Salamarak is another one, a horse I've got a lot of time for. We didn't see him in the Derby. I think probably in hindsight, Brian and Ballydor were regretting their decision only to run the 1, which is not normal for them, because he beaten Bolshoi Ballet in every single part of his Leopardstown handicap victory the day when Bolshoi Ballet won the Ballysack. So I'll be looking forward to seeing if he comes over. So those are the shortlisted 3 at the moment.
Yes, yeah. Difficult race to evaluate yet, and obviously draw comes into it a little bit as well, doesn't it?
It will do on the round track, yeah. Commonwealth Cup. Again, one that I haven't got a strongish view at the moment, but I have been very impressed with Johnny Murtagh's filly this season. She looked a speedster last year, Measure of Magic. Yeah. But she's seen out the trip really well this season, and she looks a totally different horse to the one that we saw last year. Not quite probably getting home over 5, but she's won in 2 very strongly run 5.5 and 6 furlong races over on home soil. The time figures have been very handy, and she's beaten what I would consider the right horses. Logo Hunter, for instance, first time up. And a good field last time at Cork. So she could be on a little bit of an under the radar one at a price.
Yeah, absolutely.
What about yourself, Sam?
Trappy race, isn't it? Because it's dominated by horses that I don't know a great deal about. Obviously, we know a little bit about Campagnell. But Sueza I haven't seen race yet, so I'll have to get onto YouTube and have a look at the runs of Sueza. So it's not a race that I've had a particularly good look at. I've been very impressed with Dragon Symbol. Thought it was a bit unlucky at Haydock to get beat, but it's had a busy enough spring into early summer. A race that I'll have to sift through.
Diligent Harry as well, Sam. I mean, we could easily dismiss him out of hand. I mean, it's a good race for the Coxes, and I mean, if we're just pigeonholing him into an all-weather horse, but who's to say what he can do on turf? He might even be a better horse on the turf, and if he is, we know he's got the size and physique to make into a group horse.
Absolutely, and they have that man Adam Kirby on board, no doubt, and they've always treated him like a good horse as well, or spoken about him as a good horse, haven't they? So
yeah.
Onto the Coronation Mile on the round track.
Yeah, big fan of Snow Lantern. She didn't give it a run in at York. She was too keen. They upped her in trip. It didn't work out. But I was really impressed when she beat D-Rab at Newbury in a very fast time early on in the season. I thought D-Rab acquitted himself really well in the French Derby. Didn't get the clearest of runs from a wide draw, but he's won. His victory at Newmarket has suggested that Snow Lantern, in beating him, beat a very good colt. And it's a race that is dear to Richard Hannon's heart, and particularly this family, having won it probably about, I think it was 8 years ago with
Sky Lantern.
Sky Lantern. So I'd be very keen on her, and I've seen her sort of quoted in around sort of 10, 12 to 1.
Yeah, that's very fair, isn't it, for a filly that has been brought along quite steadily, hasn't been to a Guineas, which might have blown her brain, and I think she probably learnt a little bit at Ascot, at York. The events didn't really work out for her particularly that well. She was too keen, too free. It was just a bit of a nightmare of a race for more than one filly in that race, and she was certainly in that category. So hopefully she learned a bit. And of course, she ran really well behind Zabeel Queen, didn't she, on the straight track, admittedly, over 7 there. So at least has been to the place before.
Primo Baccio as well as the other one. I think we need to mention in dispatches, hugely impressive winner at York. Don't think there's anything fluky about that. The time figure was good, wasn't it, Sam?
Incredible,
and obviously Snow Lantern was third. If we think Snow Lantern's got a chance, or certainly I do, then you've got to factor in Ed Walker's horse.
Yeah, she was one of the most impressive winners I've seen for, all season, without shadow of a doubt, and for a good amount of time. I mean, I fancy Creative Flair that day, put her up. She ran really well, and this thing came past her like she was stood still. So it was quite an astonishing performance, to be honest.
Yes.
Considering she'd been 100 to 1 for the Dubai, the Fred Darling, and had obviously run well behind Alcohol Free, but the stretch out to the mile showed her turn of foot. She's about 11 to 2, isn't she? She's probably about half the price of the Hannum filly. So I suppose you could Dutch the pair of them. At this stage, that might be the way to go. Right, on to, where do you want to go next? The Hardwick?
Yeah, it's on to the Saturday now, isn't it? We're just looking at the Hardwick and the Diamond Jubilee.
Sure, the Hardwick. Interesting contest because Broom's got 1 or 2 entries through the week. Might stretch back out to the 1.5 miles here. Hookham, who obviously goes particularly well at Ascot, back to form last time at Goodwood in a listed contest. Pile Driver, whether he ships up or not, and Alazi, whether they renew rivalries or not, I don't know. And the interesting sort of floater, really, Ilarab from the Haggis camp.
Very much so, Sam. Yeah, Ilarab's a massive player. He's just on the improve, and everything that you put in front of him, he just seems to take it in his stride. He's capable of running fast times, and anything that William Haggis runs at this meeting has got to be respected. Adayeb, of course, last year, the highlighter of that theory. And Hookham as well, as you mentioned him, he was the winner of the 1.5 mile handicap in a reasonably good time, and he's been one of the only few success stories so far this season for Moeen Burrows, who's been not necessarily under a cloud, but obviously they've gone through a bit of a quiet patch. But I thought he was quite impressive at Goodwood when he won last time out on ground that probably wouldn't have suited. The better the ground, the better his chances. So again, those would be the two I'll be looking at this moment in time for that race.
Yeah, it looks a thrilling race, really interesting race as well. And I was a big fan of Ilarab at York. I thought it was a tremendous performance. So on to the Diamond Jubilee then. Interesting here because there was a horse I backed anti-post for the King Stand, came from the dark. I thought he was absolutely guaranteed to run in the King Stand. Strongly run, 5 furlongs, and Ed Walker hasn't declared it or hasn't continued to enter it, and has put it in the Diamond Jubilee, which I find quite a strange decision myself.
Yeah, I'd have to go along with that, Sam. I would have had a sneaky look at him in the King Stand as well. The kind of horse you want to be on a deep closer, running on strongly over 5.
I thought it was tailor-made from the race. Yeah,
I know. I feel your pain there. I think Starman and Nahar, the Duke of York race, is probably their best so far this season. The time was good. I thought Starman probably got just first run on Nahar that day. and Nahar was definitely closing him down. And Nahar's got the advantage of having run at Ascot before. I thought he was a bit unlucky in last year's consolation Woke. No, he ran in the Wokingham, didn't he? Did he finish second or third in the Wokingham?
Nahar.
Yeah.
Yeah, he was third, wasn't he?
Right, yeah.
In the silver one, he was third to Chief of Chiefs.
So yeah, that's the one, yeah. But I think he's a much, much better horse than he was this time last year. He seems to have strengthened up, and I like the way he travelled. He quickened up at York. So yeah, again at this stage, I'm looking towards him, even though the official rating suggests he's got a little bit to find.
Without labouring, that came from the dark point. The fact that Ed Walker has the 3-1 favourite and an absolute monster of a horse in Starman as favourite. That's why I thought that the other horse would definitely run in the King's Stand. Anyway.
No, you're dead right. I mean, if that was Willie Mullins, for instance, there's no way he'd run those two kind of horses. He'd split them up, wouldn't he? He'd say, right, we're running that one in the Arc and we're running that one in the Marsh.
Absolutely. Anyway, what's done's done. 83 entries at this stage for the Wokingham, so a nice easy race for you to sift through. But knowing you'll had an idea on or an eye on this race for quite some time with something that would have caught your eye.
Yeah, I must admit, the bookmakers have got me here because one of the favourites, is it Chill?
Yeah.
I'm just looking down the list here. Yeah. Number 6 on the list. I was looking further down, but of course I need to look further up. I mean, that was an eye-popping performance at Newmarket, wasn't it? I mean, the way it travelled, the way it quickened up, the back end sectionals were really good, and we know he's a winner of she's a winner of the course and distance last season as well.
Yes.
When she showed a good turn of foot that day. So I'm not telling something that's controversial here. I think this one's the right favourite.
Yeah.
So I'm not going to look beyond that at the moment because there's bound to be other horses as the week pans out. If he goes and gets a bad draw, it's no point putting all your eggs in one basket. But again, it's a horse I think that the bookmakers have got absolutely spot on.
Yeah. I think Great Ambassador's a little bit interesting. Obviously, we got that doing a really spectacular figure at Kempton early season, didn't we? And then third behind Chill, keeping on. Maybe the track didn't play to its strengths as much as Ascot might. So
no, didn't handle the dip, did it? As well as Chill.
No, absolutely. Of course, ran in the Britannia last year, beaten 10 lengths by Calusi, but Calusi beat everything by about 10 lengths that day. So, and that was obviously going to stretch him over the mile. So back at 6, I think that might be a long-term plan. And Ed Walker, as we know, has had a great season. So there's just a couple of names really that same form line in effect. Just going on to the 2-year-olds, Andy. Obviously, we haven't seen any entries yet when we're recording this, but they're races that are close to your heart. Coventry, the Queen Mary, the Norfolk, etc. Is there anything that you've sort of penciled in for those races as yet? Horses that have caught your eye, both off our figures and your own?
Yeah, I like a horse of Richard Hannon's Armour, who won at Doncaster. He's just had the one run. He beat 2 horses who've gone on to win subsequently. El Caballo, who he incidentally also got a fast time for, didn't we, when he won at Carlisle?
Yeah.
So he was beating no back number that day, and the third horse has won since as well, having got beat the next time. But I was really impressed with his turn of foot that day and his attitude. He goes for the Norfolk, so I'll be quite keen on him if he goes there. The Coventry is a difficult one at the moment because you've got a rather surprising entry in many respects with Coffee Maker, one of Wesley Ward's, a filly, parachuted into that race to make it a little bit more difficult for backers of would-be colts. And you've got the 2 from that Group 3 race at the Curragh the other day, Castle Star Masato. Masato was very unlucky, Donick O'Brien's horse, that I could give him a chance. And we've got a Johnny Come Lately in a D-Barb, haven't we, who won in a very fast time at Leicester. So that race, I think, is probably an on-the-day race where you can see the draw and see what's running. Queen Mary, I was very, very taken by one of Wesley Ward's when it won, I think it was at Keeneland, Twilight Gleaming.
Right, okay.
You probably need to go back and look at that on the YouTube, but I've spent a bit of time doing my own little personal sectionals with these horses on the day, and then Wesley Ward did a group breeze with all of his runners at Ascot on the Keeneland website, which you can go on there and have a look, and you can actually clock them and time them from 3 out to the line. And right. Twilight Gleaming was the one that impressed me the most. They weren't all out, so it was quite of a almost like a bit of a spurious thing to do, really. But I just did it because it was, it needed to be done, as it were. But that was the one that was the most eye-catching, and it ran similar sectionals from 3 out to the line as all the other Ascot horses he runs, including the older horses. But right. That was the one that did it in hand without literally coming off the bridle.
Right. Okay.
So I think she's probably my idea of the best Wesley Ward 2-year-old, Twilight Gleaming. And it's also interesting that Ruth, in the anti-post favourite for the Queen Mary, is now going for the Windsor Castle. So right. I think the pecking order has rather shifted in that manner after that work the other day. So she's worth more than a second look.
Okay, excellent. And perhaps having a look at the Cheshire, a race that we've got a horse of Aidan O'Brien's very quick, haven't we? Point Lonsdale.
Yeah. Point Lonsdale, yeah. Actually, we had a conversation today, didn't we, while we were both out and about, and we both said that sort of 2 to 1, 5 to 2 isn't, even at this stage, is not a bad price about a horse that looks, by our calculations, head and shoulders, likely to be head and shoulders above anything that we've got over here. It's always the weakest race of the week with regards to 2-year-olds, isn't it? And Aidan likes to win this race. They didn't last year, but they did last year, but they didn't the year before when Pinatubo upset the party. But that Point Lonsdale's number at the Cora and the way he strode out and the back end splits he did was fairly impressive. So it'll take a very, very good horse to beat him, and I could see him going close to odds on.
Yeah, he looked a beast, didn't he, that day? He looked a beast.
He looked a bit of a battleground in the sense you think, God Almighty, what on earth is this? Is almost like a 2-year-old, almost a 3-year-old masquerading as a 2-year-old.
Definitely, yeah. Physically, he looked very imposing, didn't he? And the performance bore that out, really. What he beat, we don't know yet, but the time figure was excellent, wasn't it?
Very
really,
good,
really top class.
Yeah. Like a good one to beat him, yeah.
If I was to push you for a best bet of the week at this stage, where would you be leaning?
Well, he's probably the best of the short ones because it's hard to see him getting beat barring accidents. And we know with the time figures and what's likely to run over in this side of the RSC, he's not going to get that much competition in that race. I think the 7 or 4 for him is not a bad bet. But I do like my 2-year-old races, and I'd probably say Armour if he was to line up, which I think he will in the Norfolk, he'd be one of my best bets of the week. I'd be definitely wanting to get with him anti-post.
Okay, that's brilliant, Andy. Thanks very much for your thoughts, as always. We'll hopefully perhaps do something early week, maybe even the Monday night before the meeting starts, and perhaps firm up 1 or 2 of the other races that we haven't touched on tonight. We'll
know all the decks by then, won't we? For the first 2 days, we can also get a gauge of what's going to be likely to be running Thursday, Friday, and maybe Saturday as well. So we will, cement all our plans by this, this time next week. Okay, brilliant. We'll also have the figures to hand as well, which will be great. Thanks very much for your time. We hope that you've enjoyed this quick skip through the Royal meeting. Next week, we look forward to speaking to you again on the YouTube channel. But for now, thanks very much for joining us. Cheers, Sam.